Some of the most chilling secrets of World War II remained buried for decades.
Could this castle and its surroundings soon reveal the mysterious secret of a long-lost train full of Nazi treasure?
Until now, from doomsday weapons to horrific underground experiments, the remnants of Nazi Germany's darkest ambitions continue to shock the world. What was unearthed long after the war ended isn't just unsettling, it's terrifying. Join us as we uncover the most horrifying discoveries of Nazi Germany and the sinister truth they reveal. 20. Wolf's Lair Underground Maze. Deep in the dense forests of Haigerloch, Poland, lie the crumbling remains of one of Nazi Germany's most secretive and fortified compounds, the Wolf's Lair.
Adolf Hitler's first military headquarters on the Eastern Front, where he directed events from a huge complex of camouflaged bunkers.
Built as Adolf Hitler's main headquarters on the Eastern Front, this hidden stronghold was more than just a command center. It was a fortress of fear, surrounded by bunkers, explosive traps, and a labyrinth of underground tunnels designed for a paranoid leader who feared assassination at every turn. Even today, decades after the war, visitors are unnerved by its eerie remains. Massive concrete slabs lay scattered across the site, blown apart by German troops desperate to keep its secrets hidden. But among the most chilling discoveries from Nazi Germany in World War II were the hidden corridors and escape routes designed to obliterate the complex in case of capture, revealing the Nazis' desperation to secure an exit, or, at the very least, die trying. Explosive traps were placed in crucial sections, so that if the compound fell into enemy hands, large portions could be destroyed instantly. Engineers coated the bunkers in camouflage netting to avoid detection from Allied aircraft, and anti-aircraft guns were mounted nearby to counter potential bombing raids. But the most infamous event within these walls came on July 20th, 1944, when Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg attempted to end Hitler's life with a briefcase bomb. The explosion ripped through the compound, but Hitler survived. After this failed attempt, security measures increased, and more barriers and traps were added. But despite its formidable defenses, Soviet forces eventually reached the site in early 1945, prompting retreating German troops to detonate explosives, reducing the lair to ruins. Only massive concrete shards and collapsed shelters remain, reminding visitors of the terror and secrecy of a regime that once ruled within its walls. 19. The Riese Complex. Deep within Poland's Owl Mountains lies one of the most enigmatic remnants of Nazi Germany, the Riese Complex. Constructed between 1943 and 1945, this network of sprawling tunnels and underground chambers was part of a massive project orchestrated by the SS and forced laborers. Some historians believe the plan was to create a secure command center for high-ranking officials, while others argue it might have been intended for advanced weapons development or resource storage. Thousands of prisoners from concentration camps toiled in brutal conditions, excavating rock and pouring concrete in near darkness. Ventilation systems, heavy blast doors, and rail lines appeared in certain sections, indicating a grand design meant to withstand heavy bombing. Even today, the unfinished labyrinth feels eerily abandoned mid-construction, as if its creators vanished overnight. 18. The Berlin Flak Towers. Rising like monolithic fortresses above Berlin's skyline, the Flak Towers were among Nazi Germany's most formidable defense structures, colossal above-ground bunkers built to protect civilians from devastating Allied air raids. Constructed in the final years of the war, these massive reinforced concrete bastions housed anti-aircraft batteries and provided shelter for thousands of civilians and even priceless works of art, as Berlin braced for destruction. Each tower complex was a self-contained fortress, bristling with heavy artillery, radar equipment, and searchlights that scanned the skies for incoming enemy bombers. During the war's later stage, these enormous bunkers turned into critical vaults, storing precious artworks and cultural artifacts from museums and archives. Despite intense bombardment, the tower's thick concrete walls absorbed it with minimal structural damage. When Soviet forces fought their way into Berlin in 1945, they found that these fortresses had become frantic last stands for desperate defenders. Today, some remnants still stand, weathered ruins of a conflict that left Berlin in ashes. 17. Hidden art in Altaussee salt mine. As Allied forces closed in on the Third Reich, German officials scrambled to safeguard looted cultural property. One chosen site was the Altaussee salt mine in Austria, where tons of paintings, sculptures, and other valuables were secretly hidden away. High-ranking Nazis oversaw the relocation of priceless works from across Europe, hoping to preserve them for a post-war Nazi empire. Among the stolen works was the Ghent altarpiece by John van Eyck, plus works by Vermeer, Michelangelo, and many more. The harsh conditions inside the mine, cold, damp, and labyrinthine, posed serious risks to these fragile artifacts. Forced laborers were tasked with constructing massive wooden crates, rolling large canvases, and setting up protective walls. Eventually, as Germany's defeat loomed, chilling orders were given to destroy certain artworks to prevent them from falling into Allied hands. Fortunately, local miners secretly sabotaged the plan by using fake explosives or redirecting bombs away from critical areas. Once the region fell under Allied control, the Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives program, later known as the Monuments Men, raced against time to recover and document the hidden treasures.
When FDR ordered the biggest treasure hunt in history, and we asked Mark Strassman to tell us the story of the real Monuments Men.
This rescue mission became one of the biggest art recovery efforts in modern history. 16. The Amber Room's fate. Among the many eerie mysteries of Nazi Germany, the fate of the Amber Room remains one of the most unsettling. Originally a dazzling masterpiece of amber and gold gifted to Tsar Peter the Great, this legendary treasure was looted by Nazi forces when they invaded the Soviet Union. The entire room was dismantled and transported to Königsberg Castle, where it was last seen before vanishing without a trace. While its disappearance alone is chilling, what makes the Amber Room truly terrifying are the dark legends surrounding it. Some believe it was hidden in a secret Nazi bunker, rigged with traps to prevent discovery. Others claim it was placed aboard a ship that mysteriously vanished in the Baltic Sea, possibly carrying other looted treasures. A series of mysterious deaths have even fueled speculation of a curse, from treasure hunters meeting untimely ends to high-ranking officials involved in its theft suffering bizarre fates. For decades, relentless searches in abandoned mines, tunnels, and war-ravaged ruins have turned up empty, only deepening the mystery. While a reconstructed Amber Room was unveiled in 2003, the original's true fate remains one of World War II's most haunting unsolved cases. 15. Haigerloch Reactor Cave. By 1944, German physicists raced to unlock atomic energy for military use. In the small town of Haigerloch, southwest Germany, researchers moved into a brewery cellar converted into a secret laboratory. There, they assembled a heavy water reactor in an underground chamber carved out of rock, shielded from air raids. Led by scientists including Werner Heisenberg, the team feverishly attempted to create a self-sustaining chain reaction, a step that could have changed the course of history. But bombings and resource constraints complicated the project, stalling progress. Heavy water shipments from Norway, critical for moderating a reactor, were repeatedly sabotaged by Allied forces. As the war neared its end, the team's success was out of reach, but their final experiments happened under the watchful eye of officials desperate for any advantage. When the U.S. Alsos mission arrived in 1945, they made a chilling discovery: the reactor, unfinished but intact, with uranium cubes suspended in rods, hinting at how dangerously close the Nazis had come to unlocking nuclear power. Fearing what might have been, Allied experts quickly dismantled the reactor and took its components for analysis. The underground site was later transformed into a museum, where remnants of the reactor apparatus stand in the original cave, a haunting relic of a terrifying possibility: a Nazi nuclear bomb. 14. Merkers salt mine treasure. With the Allied invasion progressing, high-ranking Nazi Germany authorities hurried to conceal gold and currency reserves they had looted from Europe. But when U.S. troops entered the German town of Merkers in April 1945, they stumbled upon one of the most staggering and chilling discoveries of the war: a secret treasure trove buried deep within the Merkers salt mine. Several miles underground, they found a massive hoard of gold bars, bags stuffed with gold coins, and silver bullion. Much of the Reichsbank's holdings and other confiscated assets had been transported here. But the true horror of the discovery lay not just in the sheer scale of the treasure, but in what else it contained. Crates of confiscated artwork, personal belongings stolen from Holocaust victims, and stacks of seized foreign currency revealed the full extent of the Nazis' ruthless looting operation. Every artifact told a grim story of plunder and suffering. In addition to precious metals, recovered items included paintings from notable European collections, taken as spoils of war. Members of the Monuments Men, a specialized Allied unit, rushed to secure the stolen masterpieces. Meanwhile, top Allied leaders, including General Dwight D. Eisenhower, traveled to the mine to witness the eerie discovery firsthand. Documentation and photographs from Merkers became crucial evidence in subsequent prosecutions against Nazi officials responsible for looting occupied territories. The entire discovery exposed a hidden dimension of economic warfare conducted behind closed doors. 13. U-864 and the toxic cargo. In February 1945, German submarine U-864 embarked on a perilous mission carrying high-grade steel, aircraft components, and mercury intended for Japan. This valuable cargo was meant to bolster Axis collaboration in advanced weapons technology. But not long after leaving port, British submarine HMS Venturer intercepted U-864 off the coast of Norway, in what would become the only recorded underwater duel between two submerged submarines. After a tense hunt, Venturer launched torpedoes, striking U-864 and sending it to the ocean floor, along with its deadly cargo. Decades later, U-864's wreck was found resting at the seabed. When it was discovered, a chilling revelation emerged. The submarine's structure had ruptured, releasing toxic mercury into the surrounding waters. Containers filled with the toxic element posed an environmental hazard, prompting the Norwegian authorities to propose an entombment plan, encasing the sub in a protective layer to prevent further leakage. To this day, conservation groups and maritime experts keep monitoring mercury levels near the wreck. 12. The Nazi Gold Train. Rumor. For decades, a legend has circulated in southwest Poland about an armored train loaded with valuables hidden by retreating forces. This story re-emerged strongly in 2015, when two individuals claimed to have located evidence of railway tracks concealed underground near the city of Wałbrzych. Local lore suggested the train carried gold, jewelry, or industrial materials intended to fund operations in the closing months of the war. In the search for terrifying finds linked to Nazi Germany in World War II, treasure hunters flocked to the area, spurring geophysical scans and drilling attempts. Officials supervised part of the digging effort, but no verifiable remains of an armored train ever appeared. Critics argued that local myth, fueled by anecdotal testimonies, overshadowed a lack of tangible proof. Nonetheless, the rumor persisted, often tied to the broader Riese complex, with speculation that undiscovered tunnels might connect to hidden rail lines. Municipal authorities capitalized on the attention, boosting tourism in Wałbrzych. Local media covered every minor development, from unusual ground-penetrating radar readings to historical records pointing at last-minute German transports.
Legend has it that a Nazi train filled with gold was lost 7 decades ago. But is it just that? A legend? Here's Keir Simmons.
Even without tangible proof, the fascination with the Nazi gold train remains a terrifying reminder of the desperate chaos of the war's final days. Was it real, or simply a myth? Until definitive evidence emerges, the mystery endures. 11. Die Glocke and secret technology. As the Third Reich crumbled, whispers emerged of a top-secret Nazi superweapon, a device so advanced it could have changed the course of history. One claimed creation was the so-called Die Glocke, or the Bell. This enigmatic machine became one of World War II's most chilling and controversial mysteries. Alleged witnesses and secondary sources suggested it involved rotating cylinders, exotic metals, or perhaps attempts at anti-gravity. Various accounts placed it in a facility near the Czech border, guarded by the SS. The majority of established historians view the Bell saga with skepticism, citing minimal wartime documentation. No confirmed blueprint or official reference has been produced, aside from scattered anecdotes. Nonetheless, speculation holds that fragments of real research projects might have become distorted over time. The Germans did pursue experimentation in fields like propulsion and particle physics, often scattered across multiple secret laboratories. Yet, despite the chilling allure of the story, it's possible that Die Glocke merged separate technological efforts into one story. And now for today's subscribers pick. Could this be undeniable proof of Nazi Germany's secret UFO program? Hidden deep in the jungle, the discovery of this mysterious wreck has sparked wild theories. Its sleek, almost futuristic design seems decades ahead of its time, far beyond conventional World War II aircraft. Some researchers believe it's tied to Glocke, the legendary anti-gravity experiment rumored to have vanished without a trace. Others suggest it was part of a top-secret Wunderwaffe project, an attempt to create flying saucers capable of escaping the war-torn Earth. But if that's true, why was it abandoned? Was there an accident? Or did something even more sinister happen? Let us know what you think in the comments. With that said, let's keep things moving. 10. Horton Ho 229. Among the most chilling discoveries of Nazi aviation research, the Horton Ho 229 stands as a disturbingly futuristic relic of World War II. Designed by the Horton brothers, this jet-powered flying wing offered a radical shape that reduced radar cross-section, a prototype that eerily foreshadowed modern stealth bombers. Completed prototypes underwent flight tests, showcasing advanced aerodynamics that rivaled concepts later used in modern stealth aircraft. Built primarily of plywood and other composites, the Ho 229's streamlined form aimed to minimize drag and carry dual jet engines. The Luftwaffe saw potential in a fast fighter bomber that could outmaneuver Allied aircraft. Development accelerated in 1944, but resource shortages and Allied bombings disrupted production. Only a handful of prototypes were ever fully built, and they never reached frontline service. At the end of the war, American forces captured an incomplete Ho 229 V3 prototype. Today, that airframe is preserved at the Smithsonian's Udvar Hazy Center outside Washington, D.C., where it provides a glimpse into advanced engineering from the losing side of the conflict. Experts have tested the airframe with modern methods, confirming it had significant radar scattering properties. 9. The V-weapons site at Peenemunde. The remote coastal area of Peenemunde in northern Germany was a testing hub for some of the war's most ambitious weapons programs. Led by Werner von Braun and others, the facility produced the V-1 flying bomb and the V-2 rocket, both considered wonders of early rocket technology. These were intended as vengeance weapons, aimed at striking Britain and later other targets to break morale. The V-1 was a pilotless pulse jet missile, often spotted by its distinct buzzing sound, while the V-2 was a ballistic missile that arrived without warning. Though these weapons caused destruction and fear, their overall strategic impact was limited by late deployment and industrial constraints. Nonetheless, development at Peenemunde laid the groundwork for future space exploration, with many scientists eventually moving to the US or the Soviet Union after the war. In August 1943, British bombers carried out Operation Hydra, targeting the facilities to disrupt research and production. The raid killed key personnel and delayed rocket programs, but testing continued in hidden locations. After Germany's surrender, Allied teams descended upon Peenemunde, seizing documents, parts, and entire rockets. Analysis of the site revealed advanced techniques for propulsion and guidance systems. Today, sections of the testing grounds remain scattered with concrete remnants, bearing silent witness to a race that briefly made Germany a pioneer in rocket technology. 8. Bunkers of the Channel Islands. When Germany occupied the Channel Islands in 1940, it marked the only British territory seized during the war. Hitler declared the islands a strategic stronghold, and construction soon began on formidable defenses. Coastal gun emplacements, radar towers, and underground bunkers sprouted across Guernsey, Jersey, Alderney, and smaller islets. Thousands of conscripted workers from labor camps toiled in harsh conditions to complete these fortifications, which included intricate tunnel networks and reinforced casemates built into rocky outcrops. Some bunkers concealed storerooms filled with ammunition, supplies, and equipment for potential prolonged sieges. Garrisoned by thousands of troops, the islands remained under German control even as mainland France was liberated. By late 1944, the fortress had become a cornered outpost, cut off from regular supply lines. Many bunkers were sealed and abandoned as resources dwindled. When the islands were liberated in May 1945, days after Germany's official capitulation, Allied soldiers discovered entire underground complexes, rummaging through leftover rations and equipment. Post-war authorities found it impractical to demolish every structure, leaving many bunkers intact. Today, some have been preserved or converted into museums, illustrating how thoroughly the occupiers turned these scenic islands into defensive positions. 7. Stolen valuables in Frankfurt. Beyond famous artworks, the Nazis also confiscated personal possessions, especially items belonging to Jewish families. In Frankfurt, large quantities of valuables were seized under discriminatory laws designed to strip communities of wealth. By the closing stages of the war, these items were gathered and hidden in buildings or underground storage sites to prevent them from falling into Allied hands. When U.S. forces entered the city, intelligence units focused on uncovering caches of jewelry, gold, and cultural artifacts. They searched abandoned factories, basements, and vaults underneath financial institutions. In one instance, they discovered a hoard of wedding rings, gold teeth fillings, and other personal effects forcibly removed from deported individuals. Such findings highlighted the extent of systematic robbery that financed parts of the war effort and enriched officials. After cataloging these materials, Allied authorities launched efforts to return them to rightful owners, though the process proved daunting. Many records had been destroyed or falsified. Survivors of persecution struggled to prove ownership decades later, and some recovered items were unclaimed because entire families had perished. Investigations also led to more significant legal proceedings and restitution initiatives. 6. The Eagle's Nest at Obersalzberg. High in the Bavarian Alps stands a building often called the Eagle's Nest, built as a 50th birthday gift for Hitler. Perched on a mountaintop above Berchtesgaden, the structure served as a retreat and meeting spot for Nazi leadership. Because of its sheer elevation, an elaborate road was constructed, culminating in a tunnel leading to a brass-paneled elevator that rose directly into the building. Among the last standoffs of World War II, Allied forces advanced into southern Germany, expecting the area to become a final bastion of resistance. Despite its imposing appearance, the Eagle's Nest was taken without heavy fighting. In the surrounding Obersalzberg complex, bombed villas and bunkers revealed personal documents, propaganda materials, and some looted goods. Soldiers combed through lavishly decorated rooms, discovering how top figures relaxed in relative comfort, even as their regime collapsed. In later years, the building was repurposed. The U.S. military used portions of the site before returning it to German administration. Today, the Eagle's Nest operates as a tourist attraction, with a panoramic view stretching across alpine valleys. 5. Subterranean munitions in the Harz Mountains. Late in the war, Germany increasingly moved production facilities underground to shield them from Allied air raids. One such site emerged in the Harz Mountains, where forced laborers dug tunnels for armament manufacturing. Railway lines were extended deep into these hidden complexes, allowing raw materials to be transported discreetly. Factories churned out small arms, tank parts, and munitions, operating away from prying eyes. When American forces arrived in April 1945, they captured entire underground workshops, abandoned machinery, half-assembled weapons, and stockpiles of ammunition littered the corridors. Investigators concluded that the intense bombing campaigns forced the shift to these subterranean plants, where ventilation, lighting, and worker accommodations were often makeshift. Planners prioritized keeping output flowing over ensuring safe working conditions, leading to brutal hardships. Some tunnels housed advanced prototypes, but many were simple expansions of existing production lines. Over the years, local governments found leftover bombs and hazardous chemicals. Submerged passages still present dangers, with structural instability and potential unexploded ordnance. Specialists carefully survey these zones to prevent accidents or illegal salvage attempts. Though overshadowed by larger industrial complexes like Mittelbau Dora, these smaller sites collectively contributed significantly to the war economy. 4. Thuringia tunnels. As Allied intelligence picked up signals of hidden projects in central Germany, they zeroed in on Thuringia's wooded hills. Reports indicated an extensive system of tunnels and chambers built for undisclosed purposes. Codenamed facilities sprang up near towns like Jonastal, where laborers excavated rocky ground for rumored headquarters or advanced labs. Some accounts mentioned possible nuclear or missile research, but exact details remained elusive. U.S. and Soviet troops arriving in 1945 conducted wide-scale surveys of these sites. They found incomplete corridors, partially installed ventilation shafts, and occasional heavy machinery. Documentation on future plans was sparse, with captured German officials providing vague or conflicting statements. Post-war security restricted access as occupying forces extracted anything of immediate scientific or military value. In subsequent decades, Local historians and explorers revisited these underground networks, discovering leftover construction materials and structural diagrams. Some tunnel entrances had collapsed, and others were sealed by the authorities. Debates continue about whether the sites were intended to house leadership, store prototypes, or conceal valuables. Without final building records, their original purpose remains uncertain. However, the resource expenditure on these reinforced tunnels signaled the regime's desperation, mobilizing thousands of workers to carve out hideaways that ultimately never reached full operation before defeat. 3. Operation Bernhard's Counterfeit Finds. Operation Bernhard was an audacious plan by German intelligence to flood the British economy with forged banknotes. Launched in 1942, it relied on skilled printers, engravers, and concentration camp inmates, forced to produce nearly perfect counterfeits of British pound notes. These forgeries were meant to devalue the British currency, disrupting financial stability. The operation moved several times, eventually settling at the Sachsenhausen concentration camp outside Berlin. Under rigorous secrecy, prisoners worked day and night with specialized plates, high-quality paper, and inks. The final product was strikingly authentic, so much so that many notes successfully entered circulation. By 1945, millions of pounds in forged currency had been printed. As the Allies closed in, SS personnel attempted to hide or destroy the printing equipment. Some forged notes were dumped in remote lakes or transported to different sites.
$400 million, which is a lot of money then, 50 years ago, of the $400 million that was sent to Switzerland from Germany.
After the war, investigators uncovered hidden caches of counterfeit bills, printing plates, and even diaries documenting production details. Evidence of these activities showed how Germany attempted financial sabotage alongside conventional warfare. The notes discovered in Austrian lakes and abandoned trucks offered tangible proof of an undertaking that combined cunning craftsmanship with forced labor. 2. Dora-Mittelbau tunnels. Dora-Mittelbau, nestled in the Harz region, was a notorious concentration camp complex specifically intended for secret armament production. Prisoners labored in the Mittelwerk tunnels, manufacturing V-2 rockets under extreme conditions. Shifts lasted long hours, with inadequate food or medical care. The catacombs were filled with dust and fumes from machinery, posing lethal risks to detainees. When U.S. forces arrived in April 1945, they witnessed an environment designed to exploit forced labor at any cost. Partially assembled rockets, test stands, and technical drawings cluttered the cavernous halls. Wooden bunks crammed into dank corners demonstrated how workers lived and died just yards from ongoing production. Allied experts seized vital rocket components and documentation, subsequently sending them to the United States for further study. In the aftermath, authorities uncovered mass graves nearby, confirming the toll inflicted by brutal work quotas and minimal safety. Efforts to dismantle the site progressed quickly, with occupying forces shipping out specialized equipment. Local inhabitants recounted hearing daily explosions echo through the hills as rocket engines ignited during testing. While much of Dora-Mittelbau's infrastructure was sealed or demolished, sections of the tunnel system remain accessible for educational purposes. 1. Hitler's bunker in Berlin. The final entry in this countdown of the most terrifying finds of Nazi Germany in WW2 takes us under Berlin's ruined streets to the Führer bunker, the subterranean refuge used by Hitler and his inner circle. Completed in stages between 1936 and 1944, the structure connected to the old Reich Chancellery above via reinforced corridors. By early 1945, as Soviet artillery thundered toward the city center, top figures retreated into this confined warren of concrete rooms. Inside, officials strategized and disseminated propaganda. Maps on walls tracked non-existent divisions. Generals delivered grim reports to leaders increasingly disconnected from reality. During the Battle of Berlin, the bunker endured continuous bombardment, although it stayed mostly intact. Death, despair, and final orders defined the atmosphere. In late April, Hitler and Eva Braun married in a small ceremony before ending their lives days later. Other prominent figures followed suit, destroying files and personal effects. When Soviet troops secured the area, they discovered empty corridors, scattered documents, and the remains of frantic attempts to burn records. Over the decades, post-war authorities demolished parts of the bunker. Today, remnants lie beneath modern apartments and parking spaces. with only a discreet plaque indicating the location. Although the site draws occasional interest, it remains largely inaccessible. Which of these terrifying finds shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more incredible stories from history.